All right, so I'm going to attack with Vampire Lord and set 2 cards and pass turn. Well, let's just see what happens. Oh yeah. That's what I'm talking about, baby. All right. Activate Heavy Storm. I mean, if you got it, you got it, you know. Okay. Then normal summon Tribe Infecting Virus. Oh. Snatch Steal. Target Vampire Lord. I mean, sure. Yeah, I guess. Okay, I'll be taking this. And then activate Tribe Effect. Pitch the Serpent. Get rid of that rat on your board. Man, are you kidding me? Fine. And then I'm just gonna check my grave. Yeah, game. Come on, man. This is the problem I have with GOAT. I keep getting bodied by BLS like every single game. What am I supposed to do? Hey man, that's just how GOAT works. Sometimes you just have it and sometimes you don't. I just can't keep playing like this. I gotta find a better deck. I'm sure this situation has happened to a lot of people. Not just that handsome gentleman, but all GOAT players, for the most part, have been in a matchup where they've been sacked and just completely destroyed by complete dumb cards like BLS or Chaos Sork or Air Knight Parshath. But you know, this deck profile is to kind of show a side of GOAT that's a little more, how do I want to say it? Solitaire-like. This is a deck profile on Empty Jar FTK. It also kind of works as an OTK deck because at the time there were not very many FTKs. This was really the only one that was kind of consistent. Empty Jar is a deck, if you don't know, that completely bases itself around 2 specific cards. Both are at 1, but both are really good. Copy of Morphing Jar and Cyber Jar. Both basically serve the same purpose, but work in different ways. Morphing Jar is more about sending 5 cards from your opponent's hand and your hand to the graveyard and drawing 5. And Cyber Jar allows you to basically do the same thing, milling your opponent. So these cards are really, really good equalizers in a very standard GOAT deck. But the point of this deck is to tutor both of these guys out, or one, just whatever you can find or whatever your preference is in the situation, based on some of the other cards that we play, and then constantly reusing their effects to deck your opponent out, and then pass turn, and then you win. It's very cringy, very stupid, and usually you want to do it as an FTK. Now, sometimes, you know, the cards don't fall exactly where you want it to be, so it doesn't always work out, but this is a very consistent list from what I've found. So yeah, if you guys want to like completely ruin someone's day and not summon a BLS or a Chaos monster, this is your deck. Or maybe last turn, I don't know. So to tutor out these monsters, these super important monsters, we play 1 copy of Sangan, searches either one of them. And then 2 copies of Mystic Tomato. Mystic Tomato also not only can summon out your Cyberjar, which you can reset with Book of Moon, but also gets you to Sangan, which gets you to either of them. So whatever you want in this situation. Don't play more than 2 copies, though, because you really only want to deck thin with multiple copies of these and get to Sangan. So that's that. Speaking of deck thinning, Thunder Dragon. Really good. Allows you to basically just pull 2 cards out of your deck. Not really complaints with this card. Literally the only reason you play it is so that you make your deck thinner and you can get to other cards faster. And so that's it for the monsters. This is it. You don't play anything else. It's just, yeah. The entire point of this is only so that you can get to these guys and deck thin. That's the only reason you play the monsters. For the spells, the rest of the deck are spells. 3 Book of Taiyao and 3 Book of Moon. I believe I'm pronouncing Taiyao correct. I'm not 100% sure. But the point of these 2 cards is they work in tandem. They allow you to reset your Morphing Jars and your Cyber Jars. Book of Taiyao allows you to flip them more than the turn they're summoned. So if you have, like, you can, basically your opening combo could be like, set your whole hand, set a Morphing Jar, activate Book of Taiyao, flip, draw your entire hand, and mill your opponent's entire hand. So this is like your main combo enabler. And then Book of Moon's just good because it allows you to reset. So then there's that. Another card that allows you to reset is 3 copies of the Shallow Grave. If you don't know what this card does, it's a good starter as well, or extender rather, because it allows you to target a monster in either player's graveyard, special summon them both to both player sides of the field face down. So basically, if you get your Morphing Jar effect off first turn, you can reset it with the Shallow Grave. If it's in your graveyard, or like, it's a good thing if you like open both of these, because then you can go flip Morphing Jar effect. This goes to grave, Shallow Grave, target, set it, and then Book of Taiyao, flip it, and then you get basically double the advantage. Sometimes it's kind of a brick, but I feel like you kind of have to play 3 copies just because it allows you to recycle your Cyber Jars and Morphing Jars. It works a little bit better with Cyber than Morphing, but, you know, still really important. Consistency cards. This is super, super important. 3 Drag Down into the Grave. This is good because most of the cards in your hand are like pretty garbage, except for like a few specific ones that you're gonna set anyways. So this pairs really well with cards like Thunder Dragon, or just like dead cards that you don't need. Get that Shallow Grave out of there. So it's really, really good for that, and whatever dead card you don't need for your combo. Again, with dead cards, Reload is really good, especially because you can just set like most cards you don't want to put back into your deck in there. Also, again, another good card with Thunder Dragon. And then Pot of Greed, Graceful, and 2 Upstarts. Upstart's really dumb. It just makes your deck smaller. You don't care about life points. You're trying to deck your opponent out. I think Graceful and Pot are really good. Again, Graceful, so good with Thunder Dragon. So that's the spell lineup. So mostly it's just consistency and trying to flip. These are recovery cards that are really important. 3 Feather of the Phoenix and 3 Spell Reproduction. Feather of the Phoenix lets you discard a card and then take a card in your graveyard and set it on the deck. Again, this works well with any of the draw cards, especially Upstart, just because it basically is a add one card from grave to hand. Spell Reproduction is also really good. It takes 2 spell cards in your hand, send them to grave, and then target another spell in your grave and add it to hand. So you can use this to bring back cards like Book of Taiao, pitch a shallow grave that you don't need, or, you know, pitch a Book of Moon that you don't need, or pitch a Feather that you don't need, to get some cards that you do need to keep FTKing. I kind of don't know how I feel about the ratios on these, because I had cut this card down to 2 a while ago, the Feather of the Phoenix, because I was like, I'm not really using it very much, and I feel like I'm just pitching it off Reproduction, because Reproduction adds it straight to hand, even though it is like technically a neg. Like, you play so many neg cards, like Feather of the Phoenix is such a neg. Both of these are, but it doesn't matter, because you literally are flipping a monster. You're flipping equalizers over and over and over. So your card advantage just remains the same as your opponent's, especially if you're going first and your opponent has nothing on board. So it doesn't matter that these are neg 1s technically. Spell Reproduction is actually like a kind of a neg 2, but it's just because it doesn't matter, because you're just going to equalize right after. So really, really good. And then this is, I feel like not a lot of people talk about this combo when explaining the deck, but it's actually like really, really important. 2 Serial Spell and 1 Card Destruction. This is like the end game that you want to do, basically. So I play it trying to get to Cyberjar 24/7. Cyberjar is more important because you get to keep the cards that are in your hand, you get to blow up your opponent's field, and it makes the Shallow Grave actually like a good card. So Cyberjar is like the better card, even though like Morphing Jar is all over YouTube, and you'll look at thumbnails and you're like, oh, it's Morphing Jar. I hate Morphing Jar. It sucks. I've already explained that I don't like Morphing Jar. I like it in this deck, obviously, because like you kind of have to, but I personally like Cyberjar. Anyways, okay, so basically, let's say you have your Cyberjar, right? You got that, and you've been flipping it face up and down like the whole game. You have, we'll say this is my deck rather. We got my deck here. Let's just say this is 10 cards. Let's say my opponent has 10 cards over here as well. This is the same amount of cards in both decks. And I have my Card Destruction and my Serial Spell. My opponent and I both have, let's say, 28 cards in our hand. Equal amounts of cards. So if I activate Card Destruction right now, and I mill my entire hand to grave, I will draw my deck and lose. And that's not what I want. Serial Spell changes that. What Serial Spell says is you can activate it when you activate a normal spell card. You discard your whole hand to grave, and then it replays the spell's effect. So Card Destruction's effect goes into effect. The way that the chain links work is let's say if this is my hand, these 4 cards, all 4 would go to grave. And then, well, let's say it's a little more than 4, because then we can actually deck them out. Let's say it's about, let's say 6. We got 6 cards in hand, which is actually like staggeringly low. We have our 6 cards in hand. We send them all to grave off of Serial Spell, because that's the chain link that resolves first, because chain link 1, chain link 2, Serial Spell resolves, discard my hand, Card Destruction activates. My opponent still has like, I don't know, 6 to... They have the same amount of cards that I would have, roughly, because of Cyberjar. Let's say they have 6 cards in hand. That would all go to grave. They would draw their 6 off of Serial Spell Copy and Card Destruction. So they would draw their 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then Card Destruction would activate, sending this hand to grave. And then they would draw 1. Oops, I can't draw anymore, I lose. While you're sitting here and you didn't draw anything because your hand was already engraved from Serial Spell. That's the important part. And that's the reason that this deck is really good, is this combo. And I don't think a lot of people really pick up on that. So then for the last cards we play, and this is, I don't know if I love these cards. This is probably the reason a lot of people don't like this deck, is because of 2 copies of Level Limit Area B and 1 copy of Swords. These are essential. The deck is already going to cycle through a bunch of cards, so like even though you're only playing 3 cards that really stop attacking in the battle phase, it doesn't really matter because you're basically not, this is more of your plan B. You're not really going to this and saying, I'm going to stall until I get my combo as like your number 1 option. You want to be using your combo like first turn if you can. So playing these are technically bricks, but they go into, they are essential because they do keep you alive in case you do brick. Which is, it sounds weird, but really in the context of the deck, it does make sense. I would not play any more than these. No Gravity Bind, no Wall of Revealing. It's just, they're not spell cards either, so like you can't even discard them from like spell reproduction. If you played Gravity Bind or Wall of Revealing or whatever it's called, I keep forgetting what it's called. The big wall card that says no, that you play in Pac-Man. Speaking of big continuous cards that say no, to out any of those cards, we play Heavy Storm. Honestly, this is super a preference card. I don't want to lose to back row, so that's why I play it. And like, technically you can kind of play through like back row, but like, I don't know. I think Heavy Storm is still like just a good card, and at the end of the day, you can just send it to grave through spell reproduction. I don't know if I really want to play this card, because of the fact that there are a few cards that I've thought about playing that I don't know about, like Monster Reincarnation is another one. Just giving me back another copy of any of the jars. So that's why, I mean, I think this is still a good card, and it's only a 1 of, so like whatever, but you know, it is what it is, I guess. It's a preference thing. You could play another card. You could, I don't know, play Gravity Bind if you really wanted to, but there's really, outside of these main cards, there's not really a whole lot else you want to play. So yeah, that was the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video and like the deck profile and want to play this deck because you hate GOAT format and you want to see it die. So yeah, let's give it to our good friend and see if he can do anything with it. There you go, buddy. Thank you. Thank you so much, Steve. I can't wait to play this new deck. Yeah, I mean, I'm down for another game of GOAT if you want. That's fine. All right, so I'll roll first. Okay, looks pretty good. Yeah, I mean, you go first. All right, so I'll go first. Draw. Set a monster. And I will activate Book of Tayao. Oh god, no. And flip summon Cyberjar. No! I can't play against this deck! No! No!